Hello, everyone. It is ಕಿEᖇᖴEtaT here, and welcome to our Perfectly Imperfect Parenting Monday night. I'm extremely sorry about the delay. I was having technical issues, as they say. And can I tell you the crazy evening I've had between when I was testing the whole Facebook Live thing to now? It's been absolutely... I've spilled nail polish on the floor. It's broken open. Nail polish on the floor. That's what happened. The wrong pizza was delivered. It's been an interesting night. All things that are very manageable, of course. But certainly it's been a night where I've had to get down on my knees and scrub that floor. And I learnt, good morning, Bridie. Good morning. Good evening. I'm used to say good morning. Isn't that funny? And I've learnt that... there are alternatives to nail polish remover. One is perfume. Can you believe it? Thank God it was on the tiled floors. Okay, tonight's Perfectly Imperfect Facebook meeting, session, conversation that I'm going to be having with you all is all about how we help our child or teenager when they are having stressful life challenges and life changes. And I thought this was a very pertinent topic because certainly that's what we've been dealing with in relation to the COVID-19 experience. Good morning, good evening. I have to stop saying that. Everyone who's hearing me say good morning, the reason is because every morning here at 9:30 in the morning, from Monday to Friday, you can come here to the Facebook page, Kindness on Purpose, and we have a morning meetup at 9:30 every morning. That is for everyone. And it's a way of, I've been doing it since COVID-19, it's a way for us to join together, to connect, to create, what I like to do is create a beautiful, nurturing environment where you can bring your cup of tea or your coffee, and we just sort of go through a few things. We always have a focus every morning, so please come along. And it kind of sets ourselves up for the day. And what I'm loving about it is everyone is completely supportive of each other. Now, yes, I am in my pajamas, everyone. This is my gorgeous, I think I got this one from Peter Alexander. Just love the gentle kind of thingo. Normally goes with the shorts, but tonight we're doing good old flannies and good old Ugg boots and all that kind of stuff. So I am a parent and I am perfectly imperfectly parenting. I can guarantee you of that. And so that is why I called it Perfectly Imperfect Parenting. If you are new to me and you don't know anything about me, I've been doing the work of working with people for about 25 years. I'm the Chief Empathy Officer of Kindness on Purpose. And what matters to me is I want to support people so that their suffering is less in whatever that is you're doing. If you've got depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, if you experience childhood trauma, any of those things, then obviously I want, that's been my life's work, is to work with people who've experienced those things. Also relationship issues, mental health, drug and alcohol. I think I've said all that stuff. But certainly, I mean, the work of being a parent or a carer, so I need you to know that when I say the word parent, I'm actually also saying carer. So I use in my mind when I'm saying that, when I say the word parent, please hear parent/carer, because there are a lot of people who are holding the care of children that are not necessarily their biological children. They might be kinship kids, or they might be someone not, like they're not their children at all, and they're doing foster care placement or out of home care placement. So in whatever role that you are in, I'm very pleased to. I'm very, very pleased that you are here listening. And when I say parent, please hear carer, okay? Just saves me from saying parent, carer every time. You'll hear me say that sometimes because that happens. Kindness on Purpose there is a movement, Kindness on Purpose movement. We're growing nationwide. If you're a Kindness on Purpose school, you know all about it, but a school can become a Kindness on Purpose school. If you are someone if you are not in a Kindness on Purpose school, then you can, join in soon. We're just launching our next boot camp for the brain. So it's neuroscience, emotion, and learning. And I'm calling it Boot Camp for the Brain. It's a 6-week course to help you to create a Kindness on Purpose classroom. It doesn't give you the full complement, of course, that working at a Kindness on Purpose school gives you, but it gives you it gives you enough to create using the latest understandings from neuroscience, from the way the brain and the body relate to behavior. yes, so that's a course that's coming on board for people who work in education, and you can see more information about that on my Facebook page or on my website. If you are not already a member of the our online parenting community, then please scroll up to the description on this and you will see a link. I'll add it in the comments as well. Okay, so I think that's all my little announcements I need to go through. How I work, how these perfectly imperfect sessions work, and I'm so grateful to have every single person that's here. How they work is, please send through any comments or questions that you have. You can post them here. For the next one, and I'll be announcing the next one. Well, actually, the next one's on. Actually, if you've got any question about parenting and about the process of parenting and about the experience of parenting, or you have a scenario, or you just need an extra, like what I always talk to people about is that you are the experts. Like, you are the experts, and you truly are, and we forget that we are, because we get lost in the worry of it, and the fear and the guilt. So, but you are the experts. And so what if if there's an area where, and being an expert sometimes is actually about being resourceful. And so, and being resourceful is about reaching out to other people who may have information that's helpful. You then take that information from another person, say, for example, listen to this live, Facebook Live, and then what we do is, you're the expert, so you get to weigh that up. It's if I'm working with a client from coaching, I'm always saying, I'm going to throw out the hypothesis, I'm throwing out the idea, you get to decide whether this fits for you, and this is the same here. I'm going to share ideas here, right? And you get to decide. You get to decide out of the things we talk about here, which ones you want to throw out to the scrap heap, or which ones you actually want to try. And then we try these things, the ideas I'll share with you, and either you try them and they work and you go, woo, or you try them and they don't work and you go, well, that's understandable, at least I tried, So we'll talk more about that. The other thing, I did start to say something to you and I can't remember what it was. I like to be me in these things, in every aspect. If anyone's ever worked with me, then I like to be me. I'm not really I can't really be anyone else. I think I'd describe my style as more conversational, whether you're seeing me as a therapist or whether you're seeing me, I'm presenting at a workshop at a school or providing professional learning. And the same goes for here. So if anyone has, that's what I was going to say, if anyone has any comments or questions that you feel comfortable sharing in this public forum, as in everyone will see your comment, and I completely understand if you don't, but if you do, pop it up there, because I'm here to be of service. I'm here to take the 25 years I've got working with children and families, essentially that whole time, and I want to take that and I want to be of service to you and throw another head into the mix as we work through this experience called perfectly imperfect parenting. I'm coming to that for you, Bridie, coming to that. If anyone is listening and you're not feeling, because it can be very vulnerable, if you're not feeling able to say it out loud, as in out loud in writing not out loud, but in writing, but out loud. So if you're not feeling like that, but you'd like to get some input, again, I've got the next date for the next one up on the events page, part of the Kindness on Purpose Facebook page. Or just send me through a personal message. Send me through a personal message. And what I will do is send me through a personal message and I will answer that at the next one. Okay, so let's get into this. So Bridie, I'm going to start with your question before I get into the content, but I just want to read your question out. Thanks for your assistance there, Holly. I just want to focus though on that question. So I've got here, Bridie, thank you for this. So need some extra support and guidance, how to help my 3 younger children with the added stress of COVID-19. Their father comes home Friday and hasn't been here for 4 months. What can I do for them to make this easy, if possible, please? I'm absolutely delighted to be of service to you, Bridie, and it completely fits in. I've still got my notes. It completely fits in with what we'll be talking about today. So let's talk about the first. I want to say to you, I had my notes prepared, and then just before I jumped on, I said to my girls, so one is 13, and one is 11, and I said to them, "What do you think you need when stressful times at when there's stressful change around. And they were absolutely gorgeous. And the information I got was something around, one said family time. We'll talk about that. Another person, I'm not sure if that was Alan actually, or whether it was the girls, said meditation, but we'll talk about that in a second. It's a very separate strategy. And what I wanted to begin with is what our children need. So let's say it very simply, but let me expand. They actually need connection. Okay, now let's talk about what that actually means in practical terms, because of course they do. So when I talk about connection, what I actually mean is if you think about when we are feeling more anxious and worried, and when there's uncertainty, because that's what change is. Change is my life's been going along a certain way. I'm in a certain regular daily routine, okay? Key people that come in and out of my day. I know kind of how the lay of the land is. And then when change comes, either all of that or some of that regular routine and habit changes. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about is that there are two types of connection that I would like to suggest that we actually apply to our relationships with our kids at these times. And there's kind of almost on purpose connection that's actually all about the change. And there's also what I would describe as connection that's not focused on the change. So what we want is we're wanting to create a sense and a structure around the children of that soothing, calming, and where they're feeling safe and they're feeling loved. Okay. So when it comes to, I'm going to start with connection that's not related to the topic at hand or the change at hand. And so that kind of connection is all the usual stuff. That's your family time, that's your bath and shower time. It's the coming in alongside our kids, driving in the car. Not that many of us have done much of that lately, but driving along in our car is something that is a really great way of connecting. Because particularly with teenagers, because we're not staring them in the face and saying, hi, how are you going? What are you feeling? What's happening? Do you want to talk about it? We're not doing that. Okay, what we're actually doing is we're coming alongside them, and it creates it's less confronting, and it allows for that kind of dialogue to occur. Okay, so that's something. The other thing is any of those usual activities, we're even helping with the homework or schoolwork that we're doing now, but really paying attention when we're there. And one of the other bits of feedback that I received from my daughter, one of mine, was, it's great when we play a family game, Mum, but I really don't like it if you bring the mobile phone to the table. Okay, now, of course, that goes without saying that I shouldn't have a mobile phone at the table. And that is a decision I've made consciously the last time or so. But look, I have to be honest, there are times when I have the mobile phone at the table. Okay, perfectly imperfect. This is me. So I thought that was really important feedback, and I'm really grateful for my child to say that to me. And I think it's hard for us. There's a great woman who's got a Facebook page or an Instagram page called the Hands-Free Revolution. So I encourage you to go to her. I have no absolute connection to her, but I personally have found her content very, very helpful. Hands-Free Revolution. And it's a great way. It's talking about parenting, relationships, and connection, minus hands-free, off the phones. And so I wanted to say that it's not so much about what you're doing, because you could be, walking along the street, or you can be painting, or you can be, serving out food. Or it's not about that. It's about the sense of paying attention at the time. So there's something that goes without saying. So we're doing connection time that is not related to the change. And what you're doing is you're creating that emotional safety through the connection, right? So the message you're giving your children is, yep, we're going through this change, but I've still got you. Now let's talk about the connection that is absolutely related to the change. And this is where the good stuff really is. So the other stuff is about keeping on doing what you're doing, maintaining that connection. But this next one is all about how you do that with paying specific attention to the change. So I'm going to go with COVID-19 because that's what we're in the middle of, okay? Or I may use an example of, say, parents separating, for example, or, I'm just trying to think. So we'll just go with that. So what I would talk to you about is, let's talk about what we do and what we don't tell children. I have a very different take on this to a lot of other people, a lot of other people who hold space in this area in working in parenting. And my position is that you tell kids exactly what's going on. Okay, exactly. So if someone has very sadly passed away, we say they've passed away. If someone, if we're in COVID-19, we say there's this thing called the coronavirus, and it is making people sick, and that's why lots of people are worried, and that's why it's on the television, and that's why we need to look after ourselves and keep ourselves as healthy and safe as possible. If there's a relationship change, or or if there's conflict in the home, we say, when kids come and say, "Oh, are you and Dad fighting?" or as would happen here at this house, then I always say, "Yeah, you're right. You've picked it up. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Where you have sensed that there is conflict between Dad and I, and that's exactly what's happening. Yes." I always, now the instinct for me to say is, "Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. There's nothing. It's good. It's all good. We're great." Right? Because we want to protect our children from that. So, but I don't, and I encourage the people I work with not to either. If there's conflict in the home, there's conflict in the home. And the reason I say that is because, from a neuroscience point of view, children literally, there's this thing called mirroring. So whichever way your brain is, and this is, prepare yourself. Let's all of us take a deep breath, because we might feel the guilt. Ready? Kindness to ourselves, kindness to ourselves. Remember, we have the ideal of who we are as parents, and then we have the reality, and those two things are closer and further apart on any given day. I spend most of my time out here. I have this ideal, and then the reality is far, 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 far away. So the thing with it is, if we don't tell our kids what's going on, if we are not open in our communication, there is a form of disconnection, and this is why. The science is pretty clear. Whichever way our brain is firing, okay, so it's wired to fire a certain way, whichever way it's wired and therefore firing in that moment, your child's brain literally picks up on that and mirrors a lot, particularly if you're a primary caregiver, like parent carer, okay? And so what happens is, our brain fires a certain way, and therefore triggers our vagal nerve, which sits at the base of our brain, runs down through, this is a very brief description, around our vocal cords, down through our chest, lung, heart area, down through our gut, okay, and reaches out to other organs. Oops, must somehow. So who does a Facebook Live thing and doesn't? I did have it off. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so what happens is, so the child then's body goes into a state of, like, they really feel the heaviness in the chest or the sickness in the tummy. Their brain, the amygdala may pop their brain function back into the primitive brain, fight, flight, freeze, or submit, all because they sense something's going on. Now, when they come to you and say, "It's something going on, why is whatever, are you and Daddy fighting?" Or, "Oh, Mum, you look a bit upset," or, "Why are we staying home? Why are we watching the news so much?" If we don't give them the truth, right, they start to doubt. It becomes overwhelming, and they start to doubt why their body's actually having that reaction. "Well, they're saying it's safe, but I'm feeling like that. Oh my God, there must be something wrong with me." And whether they can articulate that in words, it's not about, they start to, there must be something, they're telling me everything's fine, so there must be something wrong with me, right? So that's one of the reasons. Also, it's a relationship. It's giving a sense, you're maintaining a relationship connection with your children. So, like, being very, very, very honest, and saying exactly what's going on is absolutely critical, because what happens then is, when you say, "Oh, yes, we all are actually worried about COVID-19. Yes, we are." Right? When you say that, and what you say to them mirrors and is congruent with what they're feeling in their body, right? What happens is that it doesn't matter, of course, but immediately underneath whatever distress they might feel, because maybe someone's passed away, or Mum and Dad are separating, or whatever it is that's happening, whatever distress they're feeling at that level, underneath, can you see, underneath, we have a sense of connection and with the truth. We have a connection to the person delivering the information, and that forms safety. That forms safety. So all this might be going on, but the child feels safe, right? And safety is the absolute foundation to anything your child is going to experience when there's change. If you say something incorrect to them and they then sense it, they don't get that sense of safety. So they've got the double whammy of dealing both with whatever the distressing event is that they will eventually find out that it is, plus they don't have that sense of safety in the reliability of the connection between you and them. So can you see, I've kind of talked, but I'm really passionate about this topic because it's been tricky, because a lot of people our natural instinct is to protect our children and our teenagers. People also talk about saying it in age-appropriate language. I agree to a degree, but I just think sometimes who can know what that is really, but we just need to say what's really going on, because then there's the next bit, which I'm about to talk about, okay? I've just coming back to the messages here. Christy, you're saying from your experience, I agree. Others, they will be guessing what's wrong, causing more anxiety. So let's talk about that. Another thing that happens is if we don't tell our beautiful children the truth about what's going on, then their imagination takes them to all kinds of places, right? And this is one of the things I learnt very much actually in the work I do at the hospital dealing with death, dying and grief, because the question was always, should I take my child to see whoever, Now, I respect everyone's position, like everyone's very individual, and I'm not going to say that there's no such thing as right or wrong way anyway. But let me tell you what I observed over 10 years. I observed that kids do really well with death, dying and grief, that the kids would be able to come in and just be in the situation as the person was there. They just come right up to the bed and, so we're really unwell and perhaps near death. And they just come right up to the bed and just be like, what's going on? And they would want to know, and they would explore, and they would feel, and they'd be held, and they would be in that moment in absolute connection with the grief and suffering of their family members and loved ones. And as a result, they are held. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to think that one through, because that's a big example. But when we bring our children into what we're experiencing, we don't harm them, we grow them. Okay? And that's a bit of a challenge, because we want to protect our kids, but we grow them to be able to experience things like distress and change, be held with us as we do it, and then they are more able to cope. Does that make sense to people? Can you please let me know if that's making sense, what I'm raving on about? Because I get going in my mind and I know exactly from my heart what I'm meaning to say to you. Obviously deliver the content from, the science-based content as well. But I just want to make sure it's sounding clear. If you could give me a flashy face, if I can see those, the emojis, or the a little comment, that would be awesome. Is everyone having a sip? Christy, thank you, Christy. Beautifully put, Katrina. It does make sense. Thank you. Are we all having a nice sip of something? It's for those of you who came late, which is absolutely fair enough, because I started late, and time is not my I'm a bit of a wobbly time person. It makes so much sense. Thank you, Bridie. Thank you so much. Okay. The pizza, got the wrong pizza, had to get a different pizza tonight, and I dropped a whole thing of nail polish on the tiles. Pink, of course, on black tiles. And so that was really interesting. And I learned tonight that, and who knows this kind of information, if you don't have nail polish remover in the house, you can use perfume. Did you know that? The whole house stinks like perfume. I've got a mild headache as a result, but, hey, there's no pink nail polish. Spread it in a very artistic fashion as it sprayed itself across my kitchen floor. Bridie says, I think I have trouble with the age-appropriate talk, and as such, as my younger are 3 and 5 and under. So what I want to say is this. This is going to sound, again, a little bit different to what other professionals in the field will say. What the kids are really picking up on yes, they're picking up on the words and the content to a degree, but what they're really picking up on is the experience of being held by you. So you're sitting with them, even if you're not cuddling them, even if they're in their room. And with kids, I don't care if they're I mean, how many times you have conversations with children and like, and darling, and blah, blah, blah. We're having these, kind of talks, right? And they're rolling around and they're doing these ones. And we think that, do you like my demo? And when, and we think that they're not listening, they're taking in every single word you're saying, okay? Because they can feel that in that moment you are in the process of having what is a significant and serious conversation, okay? So it's actually more about the feeling that you're having, as in when you're sitting with them, Bridie, and you're giving them the information, what they're feeling is your care. Your care. Their brain is mirroring, always reading it, picking up on your brain activity. So your brain activity is in a state of, it's firing off in a state of, maybe some worry, but the intent is care. They're feeling that from you. So what they end up feeling is they might not get the words right, and they might even understand what you're saying, but they'll know that mummy's telling us something serious. She's letting us know what's happening, and she's doing the third thing, which I'm about to talk about. She's helping us look after our feelings. So that's the lived experience that they're having in that moment. The content will change, and they may not get the content, but they're getting the message that you are there, that you care, and you'll be with them 100% as you go through this thing that she just said that I didn't quite understand, if they don't understand, okay? So it's actually about the dynamic and the relationship that's more important in some ways than the content, okay? So thank you, Michelle, saying great tip. Does that make sense, Bridie? So it's not so much them understanding, because they will walk through this with the practicalities. They will walk through you. So with your situation, when you said you got the added stress of COVID-19, you've got their dad coming home on Friday who hasn't been there for 4 months, and so you'll be going blah 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 blah, talking about that content with them. I mean, obviously, be using other words besides blah blah. But, and again, it doesn't matter if you don't have to say dad coming, like it can be adult language, to be honest, right? Just say what you need to say. We all as human beings struggle with the right words at the best of times, so it doesn't really matter the words or any of those things. Hello, Joanne Blair Dixon. This is a Perfectly Imperfect People podcast, parents and carers. Anyway, so it doesn't really matter about the words, okay? It's about the way you're feeling, and that you are there saying you and your feelings matter, okay? So let's get on to that next bit. So the first bit is telling them exactly how it is and explaining, so that they feel connection with you and they feel held in the situation. And then the next thing is, okay, well, there's going to be, when we're talking about change, and no one's here listening about positive change, although positive change can be stressful. Everyone here is thinking about change for their kids and teenagers that's actually going to be possibly distressing. And again, we're using the COVID-19 as an example, but this could relate to every zillion examples of change that exists in life, okay? So the next thing, and this is the most important thing, and something that's very dear to me, Bridie says, yes, very much, and my tones, but very cuddly times here. So it's showing in body language as well, good, and just being there, and it's okay. You got it. Perfect. That's great. That's great, right? Now, the flip of that is, I am going to have a conversation. I'll make a note in my little thing here. I want to talk about when it goes wrong, when we lose it, right? We'll talk about that for everyone, because there are times when we're all going to lose it because we're parents, right, and carers. So, but getting back to, once we've delivered the news about the change, so remember, this is connection that's all about the change. We're already doing the connection that's not about the change, but it's just family time and being alongside them and being with them and chatting about what they want to talk about and all that kind of stuff. So what we need to do then is we need to talk about how their feelings are understandable. So we do the whole, this is what change is, and then you say, so it's understandable if you are feeling heavy about that. And, you know, the kindness on purpose ways to talk about our feelings is either being heavy or light. So it's understandable that you might be feeling heavy about that. And where are you feeling heavy? Because we feel our heavy feelings in our body, like you're feeling heavy in your chest or maybe your throat or maybe your tummy. Whereabouts are you feeling it? Sometimes you're feeling a bit heavy in your head. And kids will generally be able to tell you. Now, for little ones, obviously that's a bit different. But from 3 onwards, and I can guarantee, because I've spoken to 3-year-olds and they do tell you, they can pretty much tell you where they feel heavy, okay? And what I would say is if you've got a child that isn't able to articulate that, Tracy Trasler, thank God you're normal. She says, oh, yes, I've been losing it. We'd just like to have a round of applause to all the parents that are normal. That's right. I'll stop that now. And so perfectly imperfect. And so what we do is we're talking about when their emotions are running high because of what's happening with the change. And so we talk to them. So sorry, if you've got a child who isn't able to say, you know, where they're feeling heavy, either because they don't have that language yet or they are learning what the concept, then I would just say to you, you know your children well. You know whether you've got a kid that comes to you and says, oh, I feel a bit sick in the tummy when they're feeling a bit heavy, or you know that you've got kids like they really feel it in the head. And your worst case scenario is that when you're saying to your child, I can see you're feeling heavy, dear, let's look after your heavy feelings that might be in your tummy. Your worst case scenario is that you are going to be working with heavy feelings that are in the tummy, but maybe they're feeling it in their chest or their head. Either way, what we're doing from a neuroscience point of view is we're working with the vagal nerve. And whether we access the vagal nerve at the tummy when really the heavy feelings are at the chest, it doesn't matter. We're still accessing the vagal nerve by working with our body physically. So for a child, you know, I'm a big fan of heat packs. If you haven't seen me before, everyone who has already, sorry, it's the heat pack conversation. Heat packs or cool packs or ice are great ways of working with the body. Cooler months are the cool packs and the ice. Some people like the ice all year round. And other people are more heat packy. And what we do is we use those and we apply them to the parts of the body where you and the child, by the way, you're doing it with them, are feeling heavy because of this change that's going on. And you say to them, we're doing this to look after your feelings so you can feel okay again. And as they sit there with their little warm pack or cool pack and their body starts to change, right? They start to feel a sense of ease that only the heat pack or the cool pack thing can give them. In that instant, you are teaching your children that they can feel heavy, they can do something about it, and they can come out the other side and feel a little bit more ease or even completely okay again. Okay, so these are some ideas I would want to talk to you about. These are some ideas I have for you. I hope that these are helpful. Now, I just want to look at my notes. Heat pack goes to bed with me every night, Michelle. So does it for me often. All the things I'm talking about here, everyone, absolutely are all about our strategies that we use for ourselves as adults as well. And it's always about the role modeling. So any questions about how we support our kids with change that I'm not answering as we're going along, please feel free to post your question there. If you have a general question about parenting and having relationships with our children, because that's what it's about, I'm talking about really, and you don't feel comfortable posting it publicly, then please send me a PM on the Kindness on Purpose Facebook page or the Instagram page, because I'll be happy to answer that next time. And I'm doing these about once a month now. I think I've got the next 3 planned out. So stand by, we're coming back. So what we're doing then, if you think about it, we're being clear and straightforward and honest with our children about the change that's going on. Then we're looking after their feelings. These are amazing points of connection. We are also connecting with them anyway, okay? And so, and what we're doing is we're holding a structure of safety for our children, okay? Now, what do we do when we don't? What do we do when we have moments where our emotions are running high because whatever change you're talking about for them is happening to you as well? More than likely, okay? What do we do when we're affected by COVID-19? When we might have anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues, PTSD, for example, you know? What do we do if work stress, family issues? The list is long, right? So life is happening to us, and our brains and our body are really affected. Now, of course, I'm going to say to you to look after yourself and all those usual, you know, this kind of extreme self-care things, you know, that it's the small acts that actually join up that make the difference of self-care. It's not the big grandiose gestures. So that's why the week, you know, very stressful life, no other strategies, go away for a weekend. It's a very grand gesture and it's great to the retreat. And you come back and you haven't actually got some tools that you're going to utilize necessarily, or you've got them but you don't utilize them. I always do that. It takes me ages to actually practice what I preach, but I do. Anyway, so there we all are. And yeah, so it's not about the grand gestures. It's about the small acts of working with your brain and about your body that you do every single day or nearly every single day that all actually add up, okay? So I would put that to you. If after you've done everything or just because, you know, you actually have a moment where you become dysregulated, as they say, and you may lose it, okay? Now, so when those times come, obviously the obvious child abusey stuff is another category. What I'm talking about is losing. And let me explain what I mean by the word child abuse, right? I've worked for years and years and years in the field, and I would prefer to say when an adult is doing what they've learned to do, this is how they've learned how to do anger and distress, right? When they're and the impact of that is actually really harmful for the people around them, including kids. That's what other people call child abuse. So it's when the adults are doing things that they're absolutely accountable for, of course, but they're doing essentially what that is, because we're all there we are all doing what we know based on what we've been taught, okay? And some people have been taught and given support to form beliefs, values, and attitudes that are really helpful and nurturing towards themselves and their kids, but other people haven't received that, okay? So when they come into parenting, and that's when we learn what we've got. It's when we're parents, that's when we learn what we've got and what we haven't got, isn't it? When we're parents, it's from there that we learn, oh gosh, yes, I'm not that good at regulating my temper as I thought I was going to be. So I just think at every point along the way, we need to be, first of all, understanding what our experience of being raised by our parents or carers was, and then what impact that had on us. Because once we understand that, we can be kinder to ourselves, right? Not about your parents or carers being good or bad people. It's just simply they can only work off what they were given as well. But what I invite people to do all the time is be what I call a chain breaker. And so, you know, just because we've got a lived experience of parents who may not have been able to, you may have experienced emotional abandonment or physical abuse or, God forbid, sexual abuse or exposure to domestic violence or psychological harm or emotional abuse. And the worst form of abuse is actually emotional abandonment. That's what the research says. Let that one settle in. And it makes sense when you think that through. So if you've been on the receiving end of any of that, then you're going to be hurt, and it's going to impact on the way you feel about yourself and the way you see your relationships in the world and all of that kind of stuff. It's definitely going to come through in your parenting, okay? And so one of the kindest things we can do for ourselves is actually look back over what our lived experience as children and teenagers has been, and we will then, you know, be able to have greater understanding. And it's that math equation that I always talk about. A plus B equals C. A, human being, plus B being, you know, trauma or distress or, you know, tricky parenting. If you put those two things together, you're going to get C, which is a human being affected by. So the beautiful thing about it is once we realize that, at any time we can absolutely address it. right? We can do the work of what's happened to us. And what I always say to people is I've told you about the ideal and the reality, but what I always say to people as well is the kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to forgive ourselves quickly. Okay. And that's something that someone told me when I was, I think I mentioned this on a previous Perfectly Imperfect session. When I first had Phoebe, my eldest, she was a baby, a woman that I was receiving coaching and support from at the time said to me, Katrina, did you get the welcome to motherhood? And the number one thing I want to say to you is you must learn to forgive yourself quickly. And at the time I thought, well, I don't know why I'm going to need, like Phoebe's a baby, I don't know why I think I'm going to need, because I had this ideal about how I was going to be, hello, I'm the Zen mother, and as a Zen mother I'm going to float my way through motherhood and my child. What do you mean forgive myself quickly? What do you mean forgive myself quickly? Well, it didn't take long to work that out. And in fact, I'm actually quite a cranky mum, I can be quite sharp, and you think I'm kind, and I am, but I can be a bit of a sharp mum. So I have had to. It's about my own experience. So I had to look at that, and I've had to, and I still am, and I've had to. And I can talk about that, actually. I can talk about that. If you want me to, I can talk about how you can change that, because that's something that I've been working on myself. And but we all have an element of it. There's not many people who are, hello, this is how I parent. I mean, there are some, but and so when we lose it, when we disconnect, and I'm going to call losing it disconnect from get further away from our ideal about how we want to be as parents. The first thing we need to do is to certainly be kind and gentle to ourselves, but the next thing we need to do is go into a state of repair. So if we've parented in a way that we don't want to parent, then we've got a few questions we can ask ourselves, like, is this how I want to be as a parent? No. Well, what work do I need to do to shift that? Well, okay, yeah, and then I'm going to go and do that work, right? Get an understanding as to why. Is it PTSD? So in my example, it was some PTSD symptoms as well, was raising my state of emotional arousal, so I was bouncing off more. So is it PTSD? Is it our own childhood experiences? What is it? And let's do some work around that, okay? So taking as much action as you can to change it. And then obviously, if there's been a moment where you haven't been how you wish to be with your kids, then to go in and do the repair work that we ask them to do when they make a mistake as well. So to be able to go in and sit down with our children and say, look, I just, I yelled then, and I raised my voice and I yelled, and I've shocked myself actually to what that sounded like. So to be able to sit down with our kids and explain that and say, look, that's not okay. And I always say to mine, you're allowed whatever feelings you've got. Right. So when I am not being the best mum I can be, then you're going to naturally feel things like anger and frustration. All those heavy feelings, anger and frustration. It's okay. You are allowed to be angry at me. Just because I'm your mum, you're allowed to be angry at me. Right? You're allowed to be frustrated with me. You're allowed to be disappointed with me. Okay? Because I want my girls to have permission, quite frankly, that they can have heavy feelings about me. Because when we're children and we don't feel like we can have an opinion or heavy feelings about the way we are parented, we add another layer to the experience, and that is we start to feel guilt, and sometimes we start to feel shame, but we feel wrong either way. So we feel it's very confusing. So I hope that that's been helpful. So the repair work is a whole other conversation, and I'll put that down as something we can talk about over the course of the year. But I hope that's been helpful, because if you are a parent or a carer and you are a human being, there's been times when you have not been 100% happy with yourself as a parent. Do I have a yes? Yes, we do have a yes. You don't have to say it here because it's revealing itself or whatever. It's private information. But I just want to say, please be kind to yourself, because we can only be who we are. Years ago, when I was working in child and family teams, I specifically, I do the work still, obviously in schools and stuff now, but there was a wonderful woman by the name of Kari Killen, Kari Killen, Killen, and she developed a model called Good Enough Parenting, right? And everyone, that's what we're going for. We're going for good enough parenting. We're going for perfect, which is perfectly imperfect parenting. Okay. And her model, I've always loved her model because it gives room to move, to breathe and be, okay, as parents. So when change is around, right, what I want us to have is a softened expectation of ourselves, because when change is around for everyone else, for our children, it's around for us. And even if it's adult children who are going through their own change, but you're literally bearing witness to that, you are still affected, because we are only, the moment our children are born, we are only as happy as our happiest child. And so if we have a child going through something as an adult, or as an older teenager even, of course we're in there with them. Of course. Of course. So we will be affected by what's going on. So in good enough, if we go with the expectation of, okay, like imagine this, blah, blah change is happening. I'm going to be affected by that. That's pretty understandable. I'm going to look after my feelings and I'm going to look after my body. I'm going to be kind to myself when I'm not exactly at my best over the next little while this change is happening. This is also affecting my child. That's understandable. Oh, good to you. All right. Thank you, Bridie. Bridie says, thank you so much. Helped more than you'll know. Bonus help for me too, on top of parenting. Blessings for all. Also, so there we are. Imagine, and we're saying sitting down with our kids saying, hey, this change is happening, and you know, like, it's understandable that you're going to have some feeling. You might feel some heaviness about that, and so let's look after your feelings. And do you have any questions about the change? And let me talk it through with you and be there and answer your questions, and all of that kind of stuff. So just kind of imagine that. It's kind of a bit more giving yourself a break, don't you reckon? Like, it's just giving yourself a break. So we're here to work with reality. We're here not to be perfect, and we're here to work with an understanding of how the brain and the body works, and how your brain and body works in relationship to your own child's brain and body, or teenager's brain and body, and how it's working, and how we can get the two of those to have the most positive and supportive experiences possible. I hope this makes sense to you all. Going through a situation now with my adult daughter, says Michelle. Yes. Right? So I hope this has been, Michelle, helpful for you, because it's very hard to bear witness to our children who suffer. I can't stand it. With all that I know about, you know, looking after feelings and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a mum, so when my children are suffering, whether it's this, like, it doesn't matter what it's over, because in that moment it's significant for them. You know, it's just heart-wrenching. And if you could see me sometimes, I always say to people, be a fly on the wall at my house, and when I'm coaching people, because, you know, we all can know the stuff in theory, but in practice, it takes ideal reality. Some days those two things are closer than others, right? So just to finish up with, I want to say to people, I hope I've given you some ideas. What you're doing is you're creating a structure of safety, and you're doing that through connection that is specific to the change, but also connection that is not specific to the change. That connection is just as important as well. Okay. The familiar routines are also just as important. Kids love habitual routines. It's really important. Like, I've gotten mine into a nice habit of going to bed late. That's not a good habit, but it's a habit. Michelle said it's wearing me down, constant roller coaster. And aren't you riding every single high and low and dip and sideways thing with your daughter, aren't you, Michelle? Yes, you are, because we do. And so what's even more important at that time is, again, to be honest, I'm seeing you in this, you know, I'm seeing you suffering. I'm obviously, you know, I'm having heavy feelings too. I'm all about supporting you. So let's work together and support together. Let's both get a heat pack. Let's both get a cool pack. Let's both put some ice on the back of our neck. Let's do those things first before we sit down and actually have a bit of a talk. You know, darling, can I get you a heat pack while I go? And someone put a lovely thing next to yours. That's gorgeous. Oh, God, love you. Beautiful, Bridie. So you let me get your heat pack so you can sit down and do some journaling, darling, and a cup of tea. And I'll sit here with a cup of tea out here while you're journaling in there. And we're all looking after our feelings, and you've got your own business in there because you're the adult daughter, but I'm over here caring. And when you're ready to come out and talk, now what I'm going to say to you is, whether it's children or whether it's adults, I will add this before we ask our kids what's going on, okay? And sometimes we do this depending on the level of emotion. Even before you sit down and have the content conversation about what's going on, you say, you know what, before we have our important conversation about the change, whatever the change is, let's go grab our heat packs and our cool packs or our blankies and sit there and get all snuggled. And so they're looking after their feelings. They're working with their body and their vagal nerve while you're having the conversation. That's another tip as well that you can do, another way you can do it, because we need to do that before we can get them back up into the thinking part of their brain. So as a grown-up, as the adult in their life, I'll leave that one for you to decide and work out which way you want to go about it. If your child has capacity, think they're still thinking a little bit, they're not in a state of complete distress, then you can have a conversation and look after your feelings. If they're already heightened and they're full of heavy feelings, then we need to look after the feelings first, and then when they're feeling a little bit more settled, then we have the conversation. But it always centers around feelings, of course, okay? I hope that this has been helpful. I cannot tell you what it means to me to create these. I honestly feel so fortunate that I can bring to the group all this experience I've got, I guess, if you want to call it that. There's some knowledge and experience that I've got working with lots of people, my own experience as a parent. I'm happy to share it, as you know. That stuff, and be able to share it with you, throw it into the mix, throw it at you very gently, glide it in your direction. We're not throwing anything. Glide it in your direction. You then get to decide out of all of that which bits you want to try and which bits you don't. The final thing I would say is, if you're trying any of these strategies, your children are not going to do this. Yes, Mum. Yes, Dad. Yes, Kara. And they're not going to sit there and listen, and they're not going to respond in the way like an adult might. So your kids, remember, they're doing these ones, they're upside down maybe, or they're whatever they're doing, they're just being them. But know the information's going in. And also, even if they say, no, I don't want to look after my feelings, it's like, oh, that's okay. Well, when you're ready, there's a heat pack and a cool pack, and you can use them. Mummy's going to go and get a heat pack because I want a heat pack. So if you want one of those, then I'm going to get my beautiful essential oils and nice smelling oils to look after my feelings as well. So, and then say, I'm going to get my chocolate to look after my feelings. Not that we're encouraging emotional eating, but you know what I mean. I thank you, Michelle. I just didn't even notice that. Your knowledge is very much appreciated. Well, you know what? I just appreciate that you're there listening to it. Tracy Treasure, thanks heaps. Always love your chats, info sessions. Well, I love your energy too, Tracy Trasler. And Bridie says you totally agree with. Oh, thank you, everyone. You're so lovely. So please take care of yourself. I'm giving you the information. Be kind to ourselves, realistic expectations on ourselves and our children. No one's going to look like they're listening or really paying attention. Doesn't mean it's not going in, and doesn't mean it doesn't work. And remember, it's repetition, right? So over and over, small things repeated over and over again is actually what what works, rather than the grand gesture. So the sitting down once, after not doing this, and sitting down and going, now we're going to have a big talk about what's going on and let's do it. That's great. But then it's going to be about the little conversations, driving along in the car. Oh, how's everyone feeling? Who's feeling heavy today? We're going off. Dad's home in 2 days now. So using your example there, Brady. Dad's home in 2 days' time. Who's having heavy feelings? Who's having light feelings? And, blah, 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 blah. And then, putting them to bed and, oh, yes, here we are. And so it's just those little conversations that you follow up on as well. So, and in those really kind of on the go, in the process of the day, it can also be helpful. So it's not necessarily the big convos, it's all the little things adding up. I'm going to love you and leave you all. I hope that this has been helpful. Thank you for being here for the Perfectly Imperfect Parenting session. And that's been all to do with how we help our children when there is change afoot in our lives. Heating up a heat pack. Thank you, Joanne Blair Dixon. So am I. I'm actually going to go and get my heat pack and check in with the girls and see who needs a heat pack. I'll tell you a funny thing before I go. I say lots and lots. Can you imagine my poor girl is exposed to me rambling on and on about this stuff? And every now and again they'll say something like in conversation, and it's what I've said, and it's like, oh my God, it goes in. It goes in. It does. It goes in. It's like, they're listening, really. They're really listening. And it's like, whoa. I hear them saying it to each other, like, you know, and it means the world. All right. So everyone, please take care. Lots of kindness to you. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And as we experience this thing called perfectly imperfect parenting / caring, take care. Bye-bye.